Michelle.
And I am Isaiah, and we welcome you to Shifting Veils. If you like the unexplained, possibly paranormal, and always strange, stick around a while as we explore the possibilities of what is beyond our natural senses.
In this episode, we are covering the subject of skinwalkers. So grab your coffee and settle in with us as we get to know some indigenous mythology and share some anonymous stories that were found online. So tonight we'll be talking about something that evokes fear and taboo within the Navajo tribe specifically. All indigenous groups know of these, and as we can see, the rest of the world has partaken in the concept of these people as well. So, out of respect of indigenous groups, we will be calling them by a different name throughout this episode. We will be calling them flesh pedestrians. Doing research and looking throughout countless sites, one can only learn so much about them. This is because the lore and understanding of flesh pedestrians is held close to the chest by the Navajo. This would seem to be due to two reasons. One, there is a reluctance to speak to outsiders, both non-Navajos and people outside of personal circles, in fear that they will invite them into their life, or perhaps the chance they are actually speaking to one at the time. They do not wish to invite the ire of a flesh pedestrian into their life. And two, Navajos simply do not wish to discuss these particular cultural beliefs with others because they wish to keep it within their own tribes.
And this may seem like we're flagrantly looking past that, but I feel we can respectfully touch on the subject with a bit of record straightening, with what people believe flesh pedestrians to be and do as well. Flesh pedestrians do not look like giant skeletal deer creatures. You know the videos that everybody shows with all the big giant skeleton things?
Yeah, that's not
Nor
it.
no. Nor do they look like pale creatures with elongated limbs,
I've
the
seen
thing
that
that they call
too.
the rake or whatever.
Yeah.
Flesh pedestrians in fact look like you and I. They're people. I think that's kind of scarier than any other creature or anything that my imagining can conjure because these are people, not things.
Yeah. It is kind of scary. You could be going to lunch with them.
Exactly.
And you don't know it. That's Tom over in finance department, you know?
Right. People who practice witchcraft in dark ways. So that there does seem to be a distinct physical feature that does set them apart from what I've done with the research and stuff.
Mhm.
That is when they're in animal form, they have human eyes, and when they're in human form, they have animal eyes. There's also distinctions of glowing eyes like an animal's eyes when they're
Oh, okay.
humans.
Yeah.
They're given the name they have because they walk with animal skins they take form of. So coyote skins would be for a coyote, for example.
Okay.
But let's start with the origin of what is a flesh pedestrian. And this is just, again, through my own research. If anybody out there is Navajo, they want to straighten the record with me too, that's okay. I'm okay with that. You know, flesh pedestrians start as medicine men or women. Hundreds of years ago, in order for Navajo to become medicinal people, they had to travel to their sacred mountains. These mountains spanned across Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico. The ceremonies they had to perform within these sacred mountains had to be completed within a couple of days. So, in order to do this within this time period, the spirits, the spiritual people that they uh, would speak with, would teach them how to shapeshift into deer, coyotes, hawks, animals that could traverse quickly and with ease along the terrain. This would also in turn help them perform tasks like helping heal others across lands quickly. So when they became these medicine people, they would be able to move quickly from location to location in order to help heal others.
That makes sense. Learning to shapeshift was a long process, however. For many, it would take years to learn the songs and the ceremonies, and those that stuck it out became good medicinal people. However, for those that couldn't stay the course, those that became impatient, they would look for and pray for an easier way, a faster way to learn. That's when darkness hears their words. This is the dark way. Darkness tells the impatient ones that the way to shapeshift easier, the way to the way the dark ones do, you have to perform certain ceremonies. First is to take someone close to your heart, an immediate loved one, into the darkness and sacrifice them. This is only the first task. There are more, but these are among the details that remain close to Navajo sacredness. They're not something that's shared.
Yeah. In the research that I did with this, they literally drag them away from their homes and into the darkness to to perform this sacrifice, and it has to be an immediate one who is close to their heart specifically.
Do you know if it has to be like an immediate blood relative, or
Yeah,
can it be like a really close friend?
uh, brother, sister, mother, father,
Okay.
child.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's. I mean, the first step alone is a commitment.
Well, yeah. I mean, geez. And who, oh, I don't know. Who is so selfish to do that? I
Just
don't know.
like the people that just want to get the job done sooner. I guess
I
I
guess
really
so.
don't know.
Yeah, that's rough.
People are selfish over smaller things than that.
You're not wrong. Cell phones, whatever they can grab out of your hand when you're walking down the street.
Your shoes.
Uh huh. Yeah. Yeah, it's just crazy.
Something else to consider when it comes to flesh pedestrians is they draw power from the songs and ceremonies connected to the Navajo Nation, the grounds and land within the Navajo Nation specifically. So, though they may leave the Navajo Nation, they would have to be highly skilled to perform their abilities outside the Navajo Nation. So, it's possible for them to be elsewhere, but highly unlikely. You might see one in whatever other state, but the reason why they have their abilities and powers is very connected to the land that they performed these things on in the first place. Another thing to clear up since we are here is flesh pedestrians can technically shift into most anything, but it's normally deer, coyotes, and wolves because they were plentiful and common. Can it become a bear or mountain lion? Typically, no, just because they're sacred animals that aren't so easily brought into the darkness. Um, There are ceremonies among the process to shift into an animal, like hunting and killing, and the right ceremony and etchings and drawings into the skin itself. We're talking literally like what we would perceive as witchcraft now as well. You know, you
Right.
have the ceremony, you have the specific runes. If you use runes, you have the certain designs that you etch into something to help put your intention into it.
Okay.
This also can clear up whether it can shift into that weird dog you see down the street, or that, or your Labrapoodle. They aren't going to choose those as something to shift into. It's also difficult to shift into something so small. So you also see all those TikTok videos that they're like, "Oh, this dog's acting all weird," and it's like, you
Like the
know,
one I sent you yesterday.
right? That's not gonna be something like that. They're not gonna
No,
choose something like that to shift into.
but there was something wrong with that dog.
There's definitely something odd.
Yeah. It had a angry people eyes. He had problems. He had
And those
issues.
teeth.
Yeah. Mimicry is used in voices off in the distance. This is used to lure you outside your home. In the Navajo Nation, homes are very spread out and sometimes miles apart, so it's easy to think you have a neighbor coming up to your home. They'll use dog whistles within their songs and as a tool. Dogs on the reservations are protectors. Being very attuned to the darkness, they are likely to sense it if it is near and bark to alert the family they're a companion to. So, flesh pedestrians would use a dog whistle to silence the dog, to silence the alarms, so to speak. They would use techniques to put them and you to sleep to make you vulnerable. You can find many Navajos sharing stories with each other about steps being heard on rooftops of homes and growling, scratching on the door, the window pane. These are other things flesh pedestrians do. If you're wondering if flesh pedestrians can attack, and if they can, maybe how, they're grave robbers. They need material to create. They make weapons out of natural items like human bones, bone daggers, bone darts. And if there is still flesh, they will use the flesh as well. And of course, curses. They will grind up bones into dust and blow it onto you. And if not counteracted with a ceremony from a medicine man, it's said that you will die. So now that we have a basic idea of what a flesh pedestrian is, like actually is, as opposed to what social media and Hollywood has portrayed them to be.
Yeah, I mean, how does that make you feel that they're grave robbers?
I I actually had a question, and I don't know if you'll know the answer to it, but um, first of all, to answer your question, weird. Second, second of all, to ask mine. So, grave robbers. Does that mean that? I mean, are they? Is this supposed to be like human graves
They,
specifically?
they are human graves that they dig into. So this is human flesh that they're using,
Okay.
human bones that they're using. They are very much so down the dark path of witchcraft.
So, what if they find a like a dead body that some serial killer has discarded? Are they going to use that?
They could.
Okay.
It's not when it's coming to their tools and stuff. Not from what I've read and looked up, it doesn't seem to be particular to any certain thing. Not like the first step, if that's what you're thinking. Like with
Yeah.
when they're becoming a flesh pedestrian in the first place.
Mm,
It's not that particular that I've found.
okay.
So they'll rob any grave, it would seem.
Okay. Maybe even the grave of that loved one that they sacrificed
If they didn't already use it in the first place,
in the
yeah.
first place. That might have been one of the steps that we don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's our first little story here. Um, and this is something I found off of Reddit. So this was another anonymous story off of there. I live in the Navajo Nation. One day my sister and I were talking about skinwalkers and stories about them. The same night I was sleeping soundly when suddenly the dream I was having vanished and there was nothing but darkness and silence as my ears suddenly became aware of my surroundings. It was like my ears woke up, but the rest of me was still sleeping. It'd be really weird to hear hear the outside world while you're sleeping, but
It happens to me all the time. It is
at
weird.
yeah, I don't know. At this moment, I hear bare feet rush up onto my window, a banging on my window, and those same feet retreat back into the brush. I was able to open my eyes, fully awake, and my body was shivering. Somehow, I was able to get back to sleep. The next day, I told my sister about what happened, and she said she was awakened by someone or something scratching at her window around what seemed to be the same time. This was the last time we openly talked about skinwalkers. I don't know how people can fall back asleep
Mm-mm.
after
No.
something like that.
Nope. I think I would be up the rest of the night catching up on whatever anime I'm watching with all the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of creepy. Um, a close friend of mine's mom told me a story back in 1994. She had previously lived in New Mexico. I don't recall what town. This was a long time ago. She lived in these old military barracks that had been converted to little shotgun apartments. Hers set in a row, and directly across the street from hers was a single one that didn't have any units on either side. Um, she had been having something rummage through her trash can at night outside, but she wasn't sure if it was a person or an animal because whatever it was wasn't dragging the trash out and making a mess. It was just like digging through it. And usually if it's a dog or a raccoon or something, they're going to drag stuff out. It's like they have to see what all there is and they make a mess.
Yeah.
So she didn't know if someone was like just getting in her trash to find personal information or what. So this one night she's sitting on her couch watching TV and she hears what sounds like someone rummaging through her garbage. So she looks out her window and sees a dog, front paws like up in the trash can, snout down in the trash can. You know what I mean? He's standing up, like looking into the trash can, just
Mm-hmm.
kind of trying to get into it. And she goes and she opens the front door and yells, hey, get out of that. The dog looks up at her, turns away from her, and runs across the street toward the empty apartment. But when it does, it's only on its two hind legs. It doesn't get on all fours until it is more than halfway through the front yard, and then it just like disappeared under the apartment, diving into a dugout hole under the foundation. She told me that after seeing that, she didn't look outside when she heard sounds at night anymore. Now, she told me this I was over at my friend's house and it was evening when she was telling the story. I wasn't staying the night with her that night. And I think I was probably afraid to be outside at night for months. I don't know. It freaked me out, just the whole image of this dog turning around and running bipedally across the road.
Yeah. And I was gonna say that's your own story too. That's not one of the Reddit stories.
No, yeah, that's my story that a friend of mine's mom told me. Um, and
As
she
goof
absolutely, I mean, I believe her. I don't think she was just like, I got a weird story. Okay. It freaked me out.
as goofy as it sounds too to see something that usually runs on four legs running off on two legs, I think it'd be actually kind of be creepy to actually see visibly walk like running a distance with on 2 feet and then plopping down on four.
Yeah, it sounds kind of goofy a little bit. And then, I know on TikTok there is this dog that doesn't have his two front limbs, and he never really, you see dogs that are like that, and they just kind of like hop around like a kangaroo.
Yeah.
This dog has learned to like basically walk upright. And it looks silly and it looks goofy kind of. He doesn't really look creepy, but this dog had all four limbs. It's nighttime, and this is whatever has been digging through her trash can. And it's just, I don't know, it's just creepy to me that it looks up, acknowledges her, and runs away on its hind legs like, oh shit, I've been seen,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Because what's she gonna do? Shake a fist at it? You're in my trash. I don't think it was afraid of her really doing anything to her. Excuse me. It was just the fact that it was recognized.
Yeah, it was caught in the first place.
Yeah. So it's creepy to me, for
So
sure.
the reason why I said or told you that the story worked, excuse me, is that dogs are also, especially like reservation dogs, because reservation dogs are aplenty, right? So
Hmm.
when it comes to animals that a skinwalker, a flesh pedestrian, would particularly be invested in, would be a common animal. That's another reason why deer and coyotes and um, all those would make sense because they're plentiful. They're
Yeah.
everywhere. They're easy to capture. They're easy to hunt down, and they're easy to take control of. So a dog is another thing. Like they will choose a dog. It's just dependent on the dog. Like I said earlier, the Labrapoodle isn't going to be. You're not going to get your dog with poofy fur puffs on it. That's not going to be chosen. Okay, it's not going to work that way. Um, but yeah. Anyway, that.
So
Uh,
I'm not sure. And I apologize for not knowing this, but I'm not Navajo. I don't think I know anyone personally that is. I am Choctaw, and there's a lot of Choctaw and Chickasaw and Kiowa around where I am. I'm not real familiar with where Navajo are native to. If New Mexico would even be anywhere near
well, like
where.
like I said, the sacred mountains that they practice in is New Mexico, Arizona, and
Oh,
Colorado.
okay.
In that particular area, I thought I said those states. I'm
So that
sorry
you
if I
no
didn't
you
actually say it.
you might have, but that checks out then because like I said, she was living in New Mexico at the time.
Yeah, New Mexico, Arizona, bits of I believe Colorado. And I think
Okay.
there's maybe a bit that goes into California. I'm not
Okay.
100% on that. I'm not going to claim that that's correct, but that's what I believe it is. So I'm not Navajo either. I'm
Yeah.
Sioux. I'm from the fucking plains. So um the so like this is the thing too, like to keep in mind with this. And this isn't to take away from what the Navajo have here as a flesh pedestrian. Um I don't remember if we're recording now, but I don't remember if I actually said this at the beginning or not. But there are different tribes that believe flesh pedestrians are different things. And as we already spoke about, what I did mention at the start was flesh pedestrians are both good and bad. There are good medicine people out there that can shapeshift. They're just not called particularly skinwalkers because
Yeah.
skinwalkers are correlated with the dark ways.
They are primarily using it as a faster way to traverse, basically.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. As opposed to the dark ways of which are trying to perverse the good medicinal ways.
Understand.
So,
Yeah, I get it.
but yeah, no. What I was saying was like the Hopi. They have different beliefs in what these are. Um, I didn't look too much into that because I was looking at this specific one because this specific version of it is the one that gets twisted around in social media and everything.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine who is Navajo, or he's shown actually. Um, he he had talked about it before, and he was talking about how social media really twists this shit around. And we were like, oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And the last time I actually did this research for flesh pedestrians for something else I was doing, a different project, um, I actually came across people that were talking about how flesh pedestrians don't actually have they're not particularly evil like everything that we're talking about here is. Um, they only kill and attack out of like reason. They always have a reason. They have a reason to try and draw you out of your home. They have a reason to try and hurt you. They have a reason to try and curse you. They have reasons, as opposed to more malicious, senseless, mindless things like some of these other attacks and stuff.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm rambling now.
No, you're fine. You're
so,
fine.
so another story we got goes as such. I grew up near the reservation. I also have two family members that are Navajo. There are some creepy things out there for sure. I felt things and I've heard lots of stories from my brothers. One thing that happened to me when I was a teen was ultra creepy. It's definitely young, ultra creepy. We were driving through the res to get to Colorado for a concert. Out in the middle of nowhere, we saw an old woman walking on the side of the road. She was traditional Navajo with a velvet skirt and her hair tied with cotton string. I remember thinking it was a little weird that she was out in the middle of nowhere, and no houses were around, and she was elderly. She looked at us as we drove past, and about 20 miles later, we saw the exact same elderly lady again. She looked at us, and it creeped us all out. It could have been a twin, but I'm good with faces, and it was the same woman. We did not stop. There's a lot of stories like that out in the plains too, where um, you see a person walking off like that out in the just the darkness, and it's
Yeah,
eerie shit.
it is eerie. The next story is from someone that lives in an apartment complex with their girlfriend in Mesa, Arizona. And it starts out yesterday, I decided to smoke a bowl on my apartment patio. So, yes, there's drugs involved in this sighting. But it doesn't, discount it. So, we're going to go on and talk about it. Um, I just finished loading up my pipe and taking the first hit when I hear a voice somewhere nearby. Amanda, open the door, please. It was a young, probably in the 20s, girl's voice talking, and it sounded calm and teasing. It continued on as I tried to ignore it, smoking my last bud. After about 4 times of it repeating itself, my curiosity caused me to look for the source. I saw in an apartment building facing across from me movement. I saw a dog standing on its hind legs, leaning on a door, tapping. At first, I shrugged. Then I hear the voice again. It sounded exactly the same as last time, exactly the same, as if you recorded the voice and that sentence and replayed it once again. There wasn't any other sound or movement in the complex. I watched the thing knock on Amanda's door for like 30 seconds in what I would call a state of shock and curiosity. Then it stopped and didn't move for another 20 seconds until the dog or thing stood all the way up, away from the door, on its hind legs, and turned to face me. Kind of like the dog that my friend's mom told me about that just like looked. This one doesn't run away though. It made eye contact with me, which is weird because we were at least 50 yards away. I'm on the third floor, it's on the second, but I felt it looking at me. I held its eye contact. I was so scared. I felt like I should run. Then it got on all fours and headed down the stairs slowly. At the bottom, it started slowly walking over to me. It walked close to my balcony. Yes, it was a dog, a brownish yellow, dirty looking thing with big eyes that were 100% attentive to mine. It didn't seem natural, to be honest, but nothing looked wrong at a glance except that it was staring into my eyes and wouldn't stop. I ran inside as it reached the bottom of my stairs and locked my doors. Soon I heard clawing at my door, doggy clawing. Next I heard the door handle jiggle. Then it started on my porch door. I, of course, never answered. Instead, I hid behind my kitchen counter with a knife. After about 30 minutes, it left. I stayed up all night, but I didn't see it again, and I didn't go out again. I'm hoping it doesn't come back. I haven't gone outside at night again. So,
See, we keep telling everybody don't go outside at night.
right.
Don't
Yeah.
whistle. Don't mess around with things outside.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. I read this stuff sometimes and I'm like, geez, I like spent so much time as a teenager and in my 20s camping out at the lakes and out in the mountains and um, in this little bitty shabby tent, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was one time I went camping and um, it was going to be, there was going to be like total of like 5 tents and everybody was eventually going to make it out there, but I was with the first group and the guys I was with forgot the stakes for the tent and it was daylight. I mean it was very much daylight whenever they realized this and the decision was made. I probably freaking volunteered because I'm an idiot. But I stayed at the campsite so no one else would get it. I'm just sitting there on this picnic table on the tree line at the lake with my little bitty, I don't know what they call them now, but then we called them boom boxes, with my stereo and that's battery operated and I'm sitting there for like an hour and a half and the sun starts to go down and my batteries are dying and I don't have a flashlight. I don't have anything. And this is long before the day of cell phones, okay? I don't have a car. I have nothing. I'm just sitting there with this deflated tent, no stakes, no flashlight, and a dying radio. And, oh, they showed up, I think, just as it got completely dark. But while I was sitting there, you know, you start hearing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
whether there's really stuff or not, you start hearing stuff. And there is deer out there and there are big cats out there. Um, but yeah, I kept peering off into that tree line, hearing stuff. I was sitting with my back to it in the beginning, and I ended up like turning and facing it, waiting for them. And that was it's crazy to me to think that I used to do that. There is no way on earth I would do. I don't even know if I'd sit there in my car now all by myself at night. So,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just kind of creepy. Anyway, there's another story. It says my grandmother on my mother's side was always or has always been superstitious, but she does believe in the paranormal. Her mother was full-blooded Navajo and her father was Irish. She grew up in Nevada. One year when I was in grade school, we went to visit her. Most of the visit was pretty uneventful, typically boring old people stuff, except she always kept her curtains drawn shut and would always peek out the window. And when someone would ask what she was doing, she would reply, and I hope I pronounce this properly, Yinaldloshi. Is it Null? I think
Ye
it's
na lushi.
Yinaldlushi
Mm-hmm.
is watching me. I don't want to say that too many times. Is it like,
That's the only time you really say it.
okay? Not because of
Oh,
pronunciation. I just don't
there's
know if I should say it a whole
there's
bunch.
you don't have to say it next time. There's one more time you say it though.
Okay, this went on for nearly the entire visit until a few days before we were due to leave. My grandma and baby brother were in the front yard that evening planting flowers when my grandmother starts shouting at my brother to get inside and away from that creature. We thought maybe my brother came across a scorpion or a snake, but when we went outside, we found my grandma clutching my brother and shaking in terror against the house. Standing out in the yard was a large black Great Dane sized dog, and it was staring at my grandma. It gave those of us that came outside a glance and a huff and bounded off. When my mother asked my grandma about what happened, she just kept repeating, Lucy had found me. She soon moved a few weeks later.
Yeah. So Ye na lushi, uh, it, it's Navajo for it runs on four legs, if I remember
Okay.
correct. So
Okay.
it's it's not it's still used as a term for what we're talking about, but it doesn't specifically translate to that.
Maybe is that like how they feel they can safely refer to it? Possibly. Because I don't think it's something that, unless this is just another one of those things we don't, misconception, I don't think that it's preferred to be spoken about too much, is it?
Typically, we it's not spoken about at all.
Okay.
Um, like it was said earlier, only those that are within the close circle. If you're not in that close circle, you aren't, within that I see you every morning, we sit and drink coffee every single morning sort of circle,
Yeah.
then you aren't going to be spoken to about it. Um,
Okay.
even if you live in on the same street, but if we don't talk like on a regular basis, if we're not in that same circle, it's not going to be spoken about.
Okay. Excuse me. So, with everything we've told you and everything we have shared and uncovered, it might be a little late to say when you talk about these, it tends to invite them into your life or invite this energy into your home. So close up your windows,
Don't just close them up, cover them with your
cover them.
blankets.
Yeah, yeah. Something the listener, our listeners, Jesus, we're gonna have to cut that stumble out. That was horrible.
Nope, that was fun.
um, Something that our listeners aren't privy to is a conversation we had before we started recording is how after rereading this episode write up, trying to get more familiar with everything before we recorded, I had to take extra care to cover my windows last night.
Well, see, and people like laugh at, and it's a joke that, even us like indigenous like even make amongst each other, is having like throw blankets and our blankets that we have on our couches and just different comforters. We put them all up over our doors and our windows and stuff like
Yeah.
that. It's a regular thing and it's a joke amongst us, but there's a reason why we put such a heavy barrier there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't want to lay in bed and be able to see like a little sliver of outside through my window. I need it
Right.
all covered. That's just because if I can see out, stuff can see in, and
Yeah,
I don't like
seen
that.
it's that little glimmering eye peeking through that little corner at you.
No thanks. No thank you.
And don't forget to send us an email if you have your own story to share.
Well, my lovely listeners, I do believe that we are done. So I hope you will come back next week and listen again. You can watch our TikTok account throughout the week to get hints of what the next episode will be about. Keep a light on and close those curtains after dark.